Hi everybody, my name is Marcos Casiano, and I'm here to tell you about some of my tales from the road, some of my adventures that happen along the highways and byways of the US and Canada, but never Mexico. So this little tale comes to us again from New Jersey, where I was living at the time, and for some reason I think of a lot of things that happened at that era of my life or that period of my life. So here we go. So this one is has to do with a local drummer that actually makes it to the big time. So like a lot of things are in music, you know who the other players are in the band, or you know some of the players. So one of the guys, his name was Nelson. He played in a rival R&B band. There was the guy Dennis, who I think I mentioned in the last video. He was the guy who took my place when I had to get stitches. Then there was a guy named Bodie. He was the guy that I replaced in the Soul Resurrection Plus Three, which is the band that I actually played with the longest while I was in New Jersey. And then there was this guy that I never met, but I heard a lot about him. His name was Nafty. And I would hear people talking about, they really raved about him, like he was probably the one that was a cut above, like he was like really a lot better than all of us, So he was a little older than all of us, but he was the one that I would hear a lot of talk about. So one day, this guy named Freddie calls me, who at one time was in the Soul Resurrection, but he moved to Willingboro, New Jersey, and he started his own band called Fuego. And Freddie also took the guitar player that was in the Soul Resurrection, Jose, with him. So they're starting this band. Freddie calls me, but I'm not at home. My mother takes the call. And when I get home, she says, Marcos, Freddie called, and he wanted to know if you want to join his band. I said, okay. And I said, did he leave a number? He said, no, he didn't leave his phone number, but he said he'd call back. So, time goes on. I don't think about it anymore. And I run into Jose, who was the guitar player in Freddie's new band called Fuego. And Jose lived down the street, so I would run into him quite often. And so I asked Jose, what happened with Freddie? He called me and he wanted me to join the band. What happened? He goes, oh, man, we hired Nafty. Well, Nafty's the guy that I heard a lot about. Well, you guys hired Nafty. Oh, okay. And, again, he raved about him like he was a great drummer, and he was. So I didn't think much about it, And then sometime later, Freddie's band Fuego came and they played at my high school. And I got to see Nafty play. Now, I never actually met Nafty, but I actually, like I said, he came to my high school one night and they did some kind of show with Fuego, I guess, because Freddie and Jose had gone to this high school. It was called Pemberton Township High School. They had already graduated and left. But I guess Freddie had an insight and he was able to book his band there. So I saw him play at the school, and I just remember that it was a cold night in November, and I just remember just kind of going home after, and I never went backstage to talk to Freddie or to meet Nafty. So sometime later, and I don't remember how much time, 4 or 5, maybe 8 months. Again, I run into Jose because again he lived in my neighborhood. I would see him all the time, and I say, Jose, what's going on? He goes, you won't believe this. I go, what happened? He goes, Nafty got the gig with Mandrill. Now, Mandrill was a band from New York. They were on Polydor Records, and at the time they had one album out. And one of the reasons I knew a lot about him was because Freddie would go to New York quite often because he would play. He was a percussion player, and he would hook up with bands, and he'd play there on the weekends with different bands, I think doing weddings and things like that. And every now and then he would come back with an album that somebody would give him. I remember he came back with a Kool and the Gang album, and it was all instrumental, kind of a jazzy record before they kind of went more pop, R&B. And he comes back with this Mandrill album, and he said, man, this is really beautiful. Some of these songs on here are really, really, really cool. I remember he played me this one song, had a Latin flavor, had a flute part, and Freddie was like, wow, this is like, just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful song. And so, Jose, again, he tells me, Nafty got the gig with Mandrill. And shortly after that, Nafty recorded on what I would consider probably their biggest album. Again, it was on Polydor Records, and it was called Composite Truth. And on it, Nafty later played on one of the songs that sort of became a song that was his signature lick. and it was called Fence Walk. You know, well, I won't even try to hum it. You know, maybe if I can find it, I'll play it on this video. But that song kind of became his trademark signature lick that he came up with on that album. He went on to record at least 3 or 4 more albums with Mandrill, and I think back in 2006 they did a big show in Montreux, Switzerland. That's on DVD. And so that was kind of the story of how, you know, a local drummer just kind of makes it big. And, you know, when I think of Mandrill, or like when you think of a lot of groups that have personnel changes, there are some of the people that you always think of that you always associate with the band, or you think of he's the original guitar player, he's the guitar player you think of whenever you think of a band. So he's kind of like the drummer that, when I think of Mandrill, I always think of Nafty, because he was the one that you know, like played on their 3 most popular albums, you know. And so it was really interesting to see just a local guy. And again, I never got to meet him, but I heard a lot about him. And so it was a interesting time living in New Jersey, because I think, for one thing, living in New Jersey, that's kind of like where I found my calling in life, to be a musician. I think because of people like Jose and Freddie and playing with those people, you know, it really sparked my interest in really wanting to be a professional musician. And it was one of those things that, you know, I just kind of never looked back, and I'm very grateful and thankful to God that I was able to have a long career, and I'm still moving along, I'm still playing, and we'll see what happens my next adventure. Okay, more later. Bye-bye.